welcome to the next edition of our book club. I'm Bethany Planton, GPC.
And I'm Diane Leonard, GPC, RST. And we're here today with you from D.H. Leonard Consulting to talk about unicorns.
Yes. I feel like it could be our favorite subject, unicorns. I mean, how fun. So our first question we're going to discuss is, how would you define a nonprofit unicorn? Because it's right there in the title. We're going to be discussing, we have to discuss what a unicorn is and a nonprofit unicorn to start with. So how would you define one, Diane?
Right. Okay, so first though, I'm like, this is like a children's book in the sense that when I read it, I want to read it like this, as if I'm a teacher, not because the content is childish, but because the illustrations are amazing and I want you to see them all. Mm-hmm. And the idea that there is a unicorn standing in front of a mirror, like, well, I always thought I was special and unique. And so if you're telling me I could be one, so I quote, not the traditional noun definition of a unicorn, but version 2, a persistent, visionary, and dedicated nonprofit or foundation professional who shines with brilliance and practices humility. I'm going to go with that and just say, yes, I'm one of those because I was a grant maker first. And sure, I'll put that definition on who I was then. And yeah, I'll go with now. How about you? Do you like it? Are you going to grab that as part of your definition for yourself?
Yes. So I remember the first time I read this, which was a while ago when it first came out, or at least a couple of years ago, and thinking, oh, I really want to embrace that. And now, so reading it and discussing it again, I'm like, oh yeah, I feel like I need like unicorn stickers to like help remind me that we're nonprofit unicorns and that we're all doing this great work because we don't always get told.
Well, and the only thing that had made me ponder this question and say, am I going to say yes or no, is the fact that the noun definition is a mythical animal. Just in case anybody forgot. Right. And I'm like, so the only part that made, like, that's why I had to read the author's definition to everyone out loud, to you, to myself, to say, no, there's nothing about the saying that we as nonprofit professionals are mythical. We're real people with lives outside of work. But this definition could work. So we're not saying we're mythical people that don't exist or that these people don't exist in foundations. And so
that's a good point.
I had to think about it. And when we think about the fact that the definition had both funder and grant seeker in it, I liked that too, right? Because a lot of this book gets into the difference between the two, how different organizations and the different like roles you might play in those two different sides of the funding equation, how it can be different. Okay, so then here's a question for you, Bethany. If we're thinking about, here, I have to remove, I have all these sticky notes, right? Top 10 ways our unicorn families disappoint. I've been on both sides of the funding equation, right? I'm like, I can see this. Do you have any thoughts? Don't check against the list. No peeking.
No peeking.
No peeking on either side. Yeah. Does something come to mind for you?
It does. So being my career only being on the grant seeker side, you know, I have a tendency to complain about the grant maker side because that's what I see most often. And so I think even then the places it disappoints are probably still for me mostly on that side. But what comes to mind, especially now as we're 2 years into a pandemic / maybe coming out of it, where at the beginning of the pandemic, foundations and grant makers seem to be like kind of opened their doors some more of, we saw that they were willing to make all funding general operating, maybe if you've already been funded, or let's skip that mid-year report and only give us a final report, or can we get this application a little shorter for you? Like all these things. And now we're kind of swinging back the other way of having all the requirements. And I know that they want to do their due diligence, but sometimes it feels like too much due diligence. And can we open those doors? And trust is the word that's used in the book. And I'm not sure if it's grant makers not trusting, but it's just that due diligence of, okay, if you've been funding this organization for years, do you really need their 501c3 anymore? Or, 3 years of financials, you probably have the other 2 from the last time you asked, or, are you coming?
Process for a process sake versus an equitable process that also builds trust.
Right. It makes it easier for the nonprofit to go do what they are supposed to be, services they're supposed to be providing.
Yeah. Well, and so the other thing then on the flip side of that, because you brought up the pandemic, you did it.
I know.
And how funders reacted, and some things got better and then things changed. I think the thing that disappoints me on the nonprofit side is that some nonprofits were so worried about what a funder wanted to hear that even as the pandemic created all sorts of changes in their organization, how they were delivering, how people were interacting, what the needs were with the community, they weren't being honest or being candid with the funder about what was changing or about why their outcomes might be different or why their outputs might be different. And just saying, that's not helping the whole thing. No. Big picture, that's not helping us at all.
Funders knew things were changing.
Yeah, but they were pressured. They felt pressured. Maybe not that they were pressured, but they felt pressured. So when I think about a disappointment, that's on the other side, right? That's the way nonprofits then aren't always as candid as I think they could be. Yeah. Well, but that's a double standard, isn't it? Right? Yes. Both sides should be candid. How do we build relationships in a way that doesn't create double standards? Ready? Page 45, blue bookmark. Double standards. Right. What do you think? Do we have double standards in our sector? Do they exist?
Oh, of course. Of course. We're humans. It just
rhetorical. That was a yes forehead slap question.
Yeah.
Do we think we even need to give examples? I mean, there's some great ones in the book.
I know those are good ones. I liked, just the first one off the top of we expect nonprofits to meet strict deadlines for grant request submissions, and we expect foundations will formulate and communicate grant decisions whenever they're ready.
Yeah. Sometimes I wonder about the grant Bermuda Triangle. Is that where the decision letter or the decision email is? Is that where it went? I'm not sure.
Right.
Yeah. On the other side, I went right to number 4 in their list of double standards. We expect nonprofits to provide profuse gratitude to foundations. We expect foundations to graciously receive gratitude from nonprofits. Now, these are generalized, right? Let's be very clear. We all have examples of relationships that don't address this double standard. They're great things. Oh, but as I read mine and as Bethany read hers, you probably came up with, I don't know, at least one example from your career. If you've been writing grants for more than a few days, you probably came up with at least one. Well, we'll have to find a box of soap to stand on about it a little bit later. But what I really would love to hear from everyone is, what's a double standard that you've seen in the sector? Go ahead, let us know in the comments if there's something that stood out. Or do you think that you're a nonprofit unicorn? Do you embrace that? Do you think that you are that amazing person? We think you are. So, let us know what that definition means to you too. And make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss our other conversations about this book and other awesome grant writing books. Look at how many books are here. We have a lot of books to discuss. So make sure you subscribe so you never miss any of the conversation or the tips or tricks.